Welcome back to the Relationships Made Simple for Men podcast with me, Bryce Bauer. Today, I'm going to be talking about highly emotional wives. I know that term might come across as judgmental, but I wanted to relay an experience that I hear from a lot of men. So it needs to be simple and make sense if you're going to be interested in listening. So let's jump into it. The first flag I want to plant is that everyone is highly emotional, meaning they feel a lot. Our fundamental nature is to feel our way through life. How do we know if we're hungry or thirsty? We feel it. How do we know if we like something or don't like something? We feel it. We feel our environment, whether that includes other people, the weather, what we're seeing, what we're doing. It's all being felt. Now, we will make up reasons for why we feel like we do. This is one of the mechanisms of the left hemisphere. But even that doesn't always quite touch in words what we're feeling. You've probably had experiences so amazing that it's hard to put into words, or really negative experiences that seem bigger or darker or deeper than any word we have to describe it. I like to tell men that they are probably way more emotional than they realize. Men are just as emotional as women, but they often deal with it and become aware of it in different ways. And men tend to set up their environments in ways where they don't have to pay attention to feelings. So their first person experience may be that there's not much going on. That's real. This isn't black and white either. Some men feel a lot and wear their emotions on their sleeve. No matter where you land on the spectrum, it can be challenging to deal with a partner who is highly emotional. And here's where I want to make a distinction. When people say that someone is highly emotional, what they're often referring to is their expression of their emotions. And there's a certain type of expression that is especially challenging, and that is boundaryless expression. So I actually want to replace the term emotional with boundaryless expression. Boundaryless expression is when someone loses control or loses the ability to regulate themselves. And so they go into a strategy of using a lot of words, intense language, big gestures, attacks, sarcasm, mocking. They lose their shit, basically. This is something that's hard to deal with, but it's not as impossible as you think. I used to work in the wilderness therapy industry with young men ages 18 to 25. So they were coming to us at the lowest point of their life, typically. Sometimes they were detoxing off of substances. They enrolled voluntarily. They often didn't want to be there at times. And so it was common for them to get really upset, refuse to do the program, self-sabotage, get into conflicts with the other clients, stuff like that. It was a very challenging population. And so I got a lot of experience working with people who were in this place, a lot of reps figuring out what works and doesn't work. And it really is fascinating for me to work with people in an activated state. Sometimes I feel like that's when I'm at my best, probably because it requires an intense focus on the task, which makes me feel more present, more alive, more connected. But that's not how it feels when you're arguing with your wife in the kitchen. It's totally different. And I get that. If I could step into your body while you're in a conflict with your wife, I have a ton of confidence that I could help her de-escalate and not escalate myself. So that's what I want to help you do. And I understand that you're coming in with baggage that I don't have with your partner in particular. The first thing to understand about working with high emotions is that the initial burst probably isn't going to last that long if you handle it well. The second you notice energy rise, the tempers flare, whether it's her or both of you, you have to lock in with a firm back and soft front. Let me explain what that means. A firm back means that you don't have to take on everything she's saying in that moment. This will allow you to not lose your shit and go into defensiveness, shutdown, retaliation, whatever it is that you might do. A soft front, which is supported by the firm back, allows you to receive and hold space for what's being said. Because I guarantee you, there's some truth to it. There's something happening that's worth paying attention to. I like the term love warrior because it represents both the yin and the yang. If you go full warrior, you're never going to stop fighting. And if you go all love, meaning like just keeping the peace, being an emotional punching bag, that's not going to serve you either because your truth needs to be brought into the space too. So, with that initial burst, the goal is just to receive and hold. Wow, that's a lot. I can see you're really upset. If there's something there to take accountability for, do it. Even if it happened 10 years ago. Yeah, I did that thing. And it makes sense you're still upset about it because now I did this, or this thing that I did reminds you of that thing. It's a type of loving surrender, but not surrender for good forever, just in that moment. And I like to introduce thought experiments here. For anyone who thinks this is not possible, you might be saying, oh, I could never do that, or that wouldn't work. But think about it like this. If I said, I'll give you $1 million, very high value, if the next time your wife has a big emotional expression, you just do what I told you to do for 5 minutes. That's all you have to do. Do what I just told you to do for 5 minutes, and I'll give you $1 million. I bet you guys are going to do it. And the reason why I think that is a powerful thought experiment is that it leverages the reward. It means you can do it if the reward is big enough. Now, obviously, no one's going to give you $1 million for doing this, and I can't make you any promises. The only guarantee that I can really give you is that this will improve the way that you do conflict if you continually practice it. And even this guarantee isn't without some caveats. I'm assuming your wife is a stable person. If she's drunk, or if she's dealing with a pretty intense mental health issue, this might not work. But for most of you, I really want to harp on this initial moment. I work with couples live and I hear men's stories about their conflicts with their wives. I try to gather a lot of data here, and I'm going to tell you something that's true. A lot of you make it worse. She has an initial feeling, a reaction, and the way that you respond to it causes her to feel more upset, more lonely, more desperate. And that's where the energy really goes through the roof. And the benefit for you when our partner brings a big emotion and we play the calm card, slightly defensive, apathetic, the lawyer comes out in us. Well, technically, if she gets more activated, guess what? We get to look at her, point the finger, and say, she's crazy without taking any accountability for what we did. This is a very, very common strategy with men, and it feeds the story that women are more emotional. We do a good job of shutting down our feelings or hide our more vulnerable feelings with anger and frustration. And when we do that, our activation goes up. And then we get to bust out the camera and say, look, she's crazy. I'm just sitting here. I'm not doing anything. We need to understand we're always doing something. Next, I want to talk about what to do after that initial burst, because you've probably been here before. Things start to get better, maybe, and then you say the wrong thing, and now you're fighting again. This is where it can be less technical and more intuitive. I can't map you out a 1 hour repair conversation. I can only give you guidelines, bumpers, flags, ideas. And this really takes you being a student of your partner, meaning over the course of time, it's important to gather information about them, what's happened in their life, how they think about things, so that you can help them connect the dots. And you're not always going to get it right. For instance, if your wife had a father who was emotionally or physically unavailable, you are going to bring some of that up in her. So saying something like, is me doing this, bringing up some of that stuff with your dad, could go really well, or it could go horribly. Some women might really soften. You hit the mark. Yes, you finally get it. I've never had a man really be there for me, stand up for me, love me. And when you do this, it brings all of that back up. That's it going well. Going horribly might be like her saying, don't try to dodge this one. This is you. It has nothing to do with him. Well, shit. This is where the art and the dance with the feminine is going to call you forward to be more and more present with what's happening. So a response to it going horribly might sound something like, right, it seems like me taking accountability for what I did is what you're really looking for. Am I getting that right? And then she'll say whatever she says, but that's the general vibe of the conversation. Now you might be asking yourself, when do I get to share my truth? And my answer would be, at any point. This isn't a perfect science. It's a dance. Bringing up your side of things in those initial few minutes normally doesn't go well. Two people wanting to be heard at the same time no one gets heard. But you sharing your truth is just as important as her sharing hers. I'm just trying to help you do it in the most effective way. It's possible that you might have a grandiose partner and you have to stop her in her tracks. No, I'm not going to be spoken to that way. We can talk respectfully to each other. I'm open to that. And if you can't do that, I'm going to leave. Totally cool. One issue with that'll happen sometimes is that we might perceive a threat that isn't really there. Yes, our partner is going to have judgments about us. Sometimes. Yes, they might remember things differently than we do. Something we said, a commitment we made. So if they say something like, you don't keep your word, you crossed a boundary, that's not an attack. That's not something we have to shut down right away. That's something that we can hold and examine. They may have used the word always. So what? People do that when they're upset. It's not best form, but we can work with it. Okay, right. There were those 3 times when I said I would do that and I didn't. It seems like you're really upset about that. I get that. Sometimes couples will argue about the wording, the semantics, the slight differences in memory. But when emotions are high, it's often better to look at the general idea, to read the energy. There's big emotion here. Something's wanting to be seen. What can I see? Not how can I pick their argument apart? You might win the argument, but you will lose the connection. And I like to hold out hope as a man that if we can do the work, understand ourselves better, practice skills, feel love and compassion, the better responses we're going to get from the other side in intimate relationships. We're helping each other heal. We're walking each other home. We need to treat this seriously. It is the most important relationship in our lives. There is the most to gain and the most to lose. And I want to help people gain. I've experienced this so much in my marriage. This is an area where I really excel. I can tell you 10 other things I suck at, but this is where I do really well in my life. And you can too if you put in the work. So get out there, give this a try. Whether it's a big emotion or a small emotion, try the firm back, soft front, focused listening, reflection, matching the energy. Try to stay in the dance with her. This is the way to go. And with that, we'll end it here, and I will see you next week.